Just let me sleep, if I'm lucky. Hunger occupies the early part of the day, sleep the latter. In between is occupation, organizing the savagery. Night leads, not day, 4:12 a.m. So now I'll read an older poem. I don't know what to say about it. It's part of that ongoing transitoriness. It's called Please Hold. The palace in here actually is Joseph Cornell's Pink Palace. Do you know that painting, the untitled Pink Palace? It's in SF MoMA. Palace calling, pink walls peeling, an iron gate encapsulated in ice, won't answer for years, outside shivering. It could be eternal or in time. Black apples sugared over in sausages, you know the kind, organic or conventional. Convention is cheap, but mush inside. When the phone rings, don't answer. Don't flow in another stream, not yet. Up to my knees in dark knee socks. How entrenched I've become. Lining up to pay through the little opening, paper in hand, swim all its itses and ises, eyes and ins, the little thin things. Through it and with it and in it, scratch. Am I scratching for more life there in the lice heads? Suppose the red robe of St. Jerome, thumb increaseth my intensity, wild beard secures the mouth where inaccuracies want leaking. I'd rather not speak, I'll just hold, thank you. Yet my holding doth arouse him, simply down in his sack of sacrilege, red curls squishy, slimed up good as old pickles. You there, just give it up. We gotta put our fingers in. It's primal law to squish and be squished, severally with all things. The bumblebees, heavy, flying low, bending it to stick and suck, till laughing and crying the high bone snaps, it's clear. To snap is to attach simultaneously like crying and laughing when I slammed down on cement and my 5-year-old stood over unable to read it, not yet knowing how babies are made. Don't wake accident, asleep in his outlaw. Don't wake him with your intensity. Who's speaking? Speaking for glue, having pulped her with his pulp, edgy every day with a broken high bone. Now which way? Underwent time inebriated in his underwear, aroused her not precise enough, she thinks, looking up from her boo-boo, that is book, looks up to where light enters, a limbo so lovesick, speaking for twilight. Not the child in deep sleep, down in his milky blue jammies, or the caterpillar molting, eating its skin several times before flight. How might we scour ourselves? By leaping? If it turns out well, name and likeness dissolve. If it doesn't, someone will remember us, I say, even in another time. Lightly flavoring, one little saffron's thread of if crushed, a monk dragged by 2 legs, 1 arm. What's in his look? Simultaneously rising, with threat of falling, a bubble's heavy wobble upward. Through it and with it and in it bursts. If in one's bursting finds words as prisoners scratch poems on foam cups, they're scratching a threat to can't contain, who are not duplicates, and by contain I mean numb as numbers, crunched, juice leaks out. And I'll just end with one newer poem in the manuscript that I'm writing now about paradise. A corpse flower blooms as the old neighbor lay dying, the scent unmistakable. Flies coming down from the sky into the sticky throat of the Venus flytrap. Smell that? As if sex has expired. In the dusky light of day plus night. An inflorescence called Marianne, concealed by the mountain we take to be Marianne, which is also Marianne, who, now dead, reveals the empty eon, who has never stopped being Marianne. If anyone doubts the empty eon of sex, Let them die as many times as they need. Coming down, words dissolve like moon petals into waves. Lip, 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 one at a time in endless service. Dividing up, say, flow from erring, or width from erring. Do you know the flow of withering or the width of flowering? Down in the dirt, in shimmering owl air, dispersed among crickets, not thinking, this is paradise. That comes later in the defining light of dread. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel and Carol and Denise. I'm really happy to have your words in this space. I'll just say a few words about the show and how these works came together. Thank you to Courtney Norris for inviting me to have this work here. As I think I've told a number of you, and you can probably tell, this work represents two different projects. The butterflies are from a project called Razzle Dazzle Melanism that I worked on in 2014. So their butterfly silhouettes are covered with a pattern that's called dazzle camouflage. It was used to disguise warships in World War I. So the camouflage was used to confuse or disorient the observer. Obviously you can't really hide something as big as a warship, but these patterns just confused the enemy about what kind of ship it was, how big it was, what direction it was going. And so on the warships, these patterns would have been in color, but I like the starkness and the sort of austerity of the black and white. So in 2014, when I was working on this project, I was thinking a lot about surveillance, especially US government surveillance of citizens. That was the time when Edward Snowden had gone public with his revelations in 2013. So a lot of people, journalists, politicians, were looking more closely at what it means that so many of us are sharing our personal information in these forums that we once thought of as private and now realize aren't particularly private. And because of Edward Snowden's revelations, because of government activity around Occupy Wall Street and other protest movements, I was with a lot of other people thinking about how individuals can protect ourselves from surveillance, or how we could, in a sense, camouflage our identities in these public forums, like electronic forums. At the same time, I was also thinking a lot about consequences of climate change, habitat loss, how wildlife is under increasing pressure to adapt to human changes in the environment or to risk going extinct. So I was thinking, what if animals could use human strategies to adapt to the human world? What if they could camouflage themselves, in a sense, to fit into the human environment, while still sort of preserving their wild identities? So I used butterflies for this project because butterflies are really sort of the superstars of biomimicry, right? They have these patterns that disguise themselves as bark, or as leaves, or as owls, or as other more poisonous species of butterflies. So they hide from their predators, or they confuse their predators in all these fascinating ways. And butterflies and moths are already associated with adaptation to human environments through the idea of industrial melanism, which is a phenomenon that first emerged during the English Revolution, during the Industrial Revolution in England several centuries ago. There were a number of species of moths there that developed darker wing patterns from the pigment melanin in response to the soot in the air, which darkened the tree bark and the other habitats where the moths would land. So the darker moths blended in better with the sooty environment. They had better protection against their predators. So that whole process of evolution was a lot more complex than just a simple cause and effect. But in any event, this concept of industrial melanism is still kind of a hallmark of wildlife adapting to human change in the environment. So I wanted to incorporate that reference into the title of these works. And these other works, the smaller paintings, are from a more recent series that I started in 2016. That's called Pasible non Pasible, which is my very corrupted Spanish of a sort of dichotomy that translates roughly as patient but not impassive, or I think of it as strong but not silent. So I started this series after I'd been working on other works that were sort of more conceptual, like the Razzle Dazzle, And I felt like I'd backed myself into a corner, I'd gotten kind of constrained with this idea-driven work. And I wanted to start work that was more responding to the process and adapting as it went along. So kind of always staying a little off balance. I didn't always want to know where the work was going to be going. And I also wanted a sense of layering and erasure of things that were disappearing in the past or things that were coming forward but not quite yet materialized. So visually, just the sense of transparency or things concealing or revealing each other. So these works are acrylic on panel. A lot of them also have watercolor in, and I'm very fond of that kind of washy watercolor effect, again, for that sense of transition or layering. And so I came to the title Mesopic Drift for the whole body of work. Because I've been reading a lot about color theory and about the physiology of vision and the molecular biochemistry that goes on in our brains that converts this portion of the electromagnetic spectrum into this thing that we perceive as light. So I came across this term, mesopic vision, which is the kind of vision we have at the moment when, the moment between transition between dark and light, at twilight, or in the reverse would be at daybreak when we transition from dark to light. So as the light fades in twilight, we shift from seeing colors to seeing shades of gray. And our whole color range shifts. We start seeing less red or warm colors, we see more blue and cool colors. And the word mesopic uses the prefix mes, which means in between, like mezzo-soprano or mezzanine. So I liked this as a way to describe what I feel like all these works are doing, or what I'm trying to do in all these works collectively, which is to reach that in-between state and to sustain that in-betweenness, that space of indecision. So visually, I think in the smaller works, there's some visual indecision, but in the butterfly works, they're visually resolved. I think conceptually, there's a moment of in-betweenness, which literally comes down to this question of whether we'll be able to sustain life on the planet. So that term, mesopic drift, was a way to gesture at sustaining that in-between state and to try to suspend that power of responsiveness or resilience in responding to what comes next. So as a postscript, it's also the in-between state that I sort of move within, between language and image, between writing and art. Writing is a big part of my practice, which is one reason that I was really happy to include writers in this event. But yeah, that's it. It's about in between. So thanks everybody for coming. Please enjoy everything that Courtney laid out for us to snack on.
Thank you.